Boy, that was fast. That thing went live quick. Look at this hat I got on. Finally, a word I can spell. I got a word on my hat that I can spell FBI. That's right. And y'all know what time it is. You know what time it is. It is 7:30 Central Time in Dallas, Texas. 7:30 Central Time. We are live right now on Facebook. We're live on Twitter. And we're going to be live everywhere else as soon as they start letting us. They've changed the rules. So I see y'all getting on here. Are y'all ready? Gather round, clowns. Michael Moulton, into the Rock, coming to you live from Dallas, Texas, baby. D-Town. I heard y'all say it. Look up. What's up, Sally? I see you out there. Rick, we got a good one tonight. Rick, go get you a partner and let's run them. He's backstage. You ready? Bring your soups. Bring your coffee because we gonna get down. We're gonna run them. We'll talk about that. We may talk jail language tonight. That's right. The words that are used when you're incarcerated, like what does chow mean? Huh? What does chow mean? What does celly mean? Okay. We got a bunch of them. We got one back. Gabriel is in backstage right now going to share his experience, strength, and hope. My name is Michael Moulton. I'm your host tonight. This is Into the Rock, where we talk about drug addiction. Yeah, drug addiction. Are you ready? We also talk about alcoholism, that liquid dope, that slithering, slimy, sneaky snake. Yes, alcohol is a drug. But we have almost been on the air for 3 consecutive years. And as a result of talking about this, and the more sober that I'm getting, we also talk about what is addiction? Addiction, people, places, and things that have my life unmanageable, that I'm powerless over. The mental obsession, right? You can be addicted to him. You can be addicted to her. You can be addicted to work. You can be did I say false idols? False idols. I tell you what, the more sober I get and the more spiritual I get, all right, the louder God talks. And then the second I put God on the shelf, the louder the disease talks. We call that Satan. So as we talk about in this show, we talk about solutions, spiritual solutions for human problems. And we're going to bring that tonight with Gabriel. This show is brought to you by DFW Coin and Jewelry. My man, Kristen Oyster. I saw him yesterday. Yep. Went by and saw him yesterday. I said, Kristen, I got to give that watch back to you because, man, all I'm doing is wearing it here in the studio at the house. I don't have any speaking engagements. I'm not going out to any events. So no one's seeing it. So I might as well give this watch back to you so you can sell it. And it was so good to see him. The studio's still there. I saw it. I was waving at it, but I can't have guests in the studio at this time because of COVID-19. How y'all doing with that? All right. Tomorrow, No Trippin' Thursday. I'll be going to you live in the morning on my way to Healing Springs Ranch. That's right. Healing Springs Ranch, our title sponsor of the show. I work for Healing Springs Ranch. I am a recovery coach, certified. That's right. I am a certified drug addict. I am a certified alcoholic and a certified recovery coach. I got to take these off because I can't see. I'm going to take this off because I don't want to scare y'all. Okay. We get that FBI hat off so I don't scare anybody. Oh, there's everybody. I see everybody. Car Talk with Travis, addiction and recovery. My man, 100 grand. Welcome to the show. Car Talk with Travis. Go check his stuff out. I've seen some of his stuff. Great attitude. I love sober people. Man, they just got the greatest attitudes. Y'all share this out right now. And I need everyone in the comments to hashtag M2381. Why not? Just hashtag that. All right. All right. Tonight we have got an incredible guest. Y'all buckle up. This is going to be a great story. It actually gives me goosebumps when I think about it. Okay. It's neat how it's amazing how God works and how God reconnects people. And we're going to share the story, but just to tease it, it says here, Gabriel, okay, and we did time together. Yeah, we were locked up together. That's how we met. We met in incarceration, okay? Okay, we were undefeated spade partners. No one could touch us. No one, bro. No one could touch us, all right? He is a disabled veteran earning his education and is the creator and host of the What a Curious Idea podcast, where he talks about authorities in their field. I'm excited to hear about this. And then whatever else I want to say, see you in 15 minutes. That's what the text says. And we're about to see him right now. I want to introduce one of my many Sellies, okay? But Gabriel is backstage. And yes, I met Gabriel on Mugshot 26. That's right. And we're going to share how we met and how our paths went a different way, and today how they have reconnected. Everybody hit the hearts, hit the likes, share this out. At this time, I want to bring on my man, Gabriel, my Celly, Pimentel. Is that right, Pimentel?
Nobody ever gets it right, brother. But yeah, close enough.
We never said each other's last names when we were locked up because I was Rabbit. And
it's true.
I don't even know what we call you. Just Gabriel?
Just Gabriel. I don't think I let anybody give me a nickname because I like mine too much.
You are. Well, welcome to the show. It's so good to see you and to reconnect with you. And we've got a story. We want to hear your story. We both suffer with alcoholism and drug addiction. This disease that we have, it's cunning, it's baffling, and it's powerful. This disease talks to me in my own voice. And this disease also, Gabriel, tells me that I don't have a disease. Can you relate to that?
I can.
Okay.
I can.
And then, Gabriel, I've been sober since May 29th, 2017. And Gabriel's in the program. Introduce yourself and briefly tell us your story of what it was like, what happened, and also when we met, and then what it's like today. And let's take our time. We got a lot of time, and I'm really excited to hear this.
Yeah, well, my name is Gabriel Pimentel, and I got sober on July 10, 2015.
What?
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah.
July 10th, 2015.
I know whose birthday that is.
Who?
Dr. Bob.
That is Dr. Bob.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so wait, I'm already stopping you right off the rip, okay? So
Okay.
July 10th, 2015, okay? That makes sense because I have a tattoo on my arm that says 7/8/15. July 8th, 15 was a sobriety date of mine, and that makes sense because 2 days later, maybe we met. I don't know.
No, we could have.
Yeah.
It wasn't that soon. When I was, I didn't get to Hope Literacy and Stare It until a month in.
Got you.
Yeah, it would have been July. It would have been right after you were arrested, though.
So in 2 days, you will have 5 years of continuous.
No, June 10th.
Oh, June 10th. I'm off. Well, congratulations. Happy birthday.
Thanh you very much.
Birthday. All right. So walk us down memory lane, what it was like and when about this deadly disease.
Yeah. I really enjoy talking about what it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
I don't harp on it because I think everybody's got a drunk along.
Right.
And anybody who's had this disease or has this disease, their story's the same as mine. I started drinking way too young. I started drinking way too much. And I really didn't care about the people around me. I didn't care about the money that I had. I didn't care about the houses and the cars. Nothing mattered to me. It was all about the next drink.
Right.
So that's what it was like. I didn't have anybody's respect. I didn't have anybody's love. Went through a divorce. Lost 2 children in the process. Drank my way into complete isolation and went from toxic relationship to toxic relationship. Ended up moving from South Carolina here to Dallas because the girl I was with at the time had family here. And man, I didn't know what to do. I was already lost. I still wanted to drink, but I knew that it was wrong, and I knew that there was something wrong with what was happening. So I'm in this new city. I don't have any friends. I don't have any family. I don't know anybody here. I haven't established any relationships. And 3 days later, June 10, 2015, I was arrested. And they took me to jail. And this disease had me in its grips enough that I wasn't thinking about freedom. I wasn't thinking about my daughter who was texting a phone that not getting an answer. I wasn't thinking about anything but getting out of jail so I could sit under a tree with a carton of cigarettes and a suitcase or whatever the hell and drink my day away. Just try to forget it all. That's all I could think about.
Right.
I ended up in Hope Literacy, where we met.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a program that a very special man in my life, Perry Green, started.
Oh, yeah.
And he talked to us every Saturday. But it's no longer in existence now. Some people abuse their privileges, and you know how that goes.
Right.
But while I was in jail, I decided that I wasn't going to keep doing the thing that I was going to do anymore, and that was drink. I didn't want to do that. I knew that it was the wrong thing. God found me. I gave my will and my life to the care of him as he has revealed himself to me. And since then, I got out in September 2015. I went home, made some amends in Oregon, came back because I had a really close friend of mine who lived up here. And we were just the best of friends. We clicked real quick. We met through a mutual friend of ours, Damien, introduced us.
Okay.
And my friend was the last person I talked to every day and was the first one I wanted to talk to every day. And after a year of knowing her, we decided to get married. And she's everything that I ever dreamed of. And she challenges me. She encourages me. She might make me upset a time or two, but we always get over it. We always come together as a result of it. And the ropes that we have are tight, they're strong, and they won't be cut. And that's the way that life is for me today. Today is honest. Today I have the respect of my peers. Today I've got family. And every promise that God made me in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous and his other big book that's been around forever, every single promise he's made that I've tested has come true. Every one.
This is Michael Moulton. You're watching Into the Rock right now, and I'm blown away. We got Gabriel here, a longtime friend of mine since 2015, and we're reconnected through social media, reconnected through the rooms of recovery. And Gabriel and I were cellmates at Lou Sterrett Justice Center at Dallas County.
That's right, Hotel Sterrett.
That's right. LSU, Harvard on the Hill. And
right.
We were doing time together, and there was a pod that was a recovery pod. And it was a God pod. And there was a lot of community. There was a lot of fellowship. And there were a lot of men in there that were wanting to change their life. And when I met you and Damien, and who we've been talking about and praying for him, and you know, we became friends, and we were spades partners. We played cards every night together. We didn't want to drink. We didn't want to drug. And there was something about you that was very attractive, and that was you had a spiritual connection at the time. I was trying, I just could not get through to make that decision. I read it. I understood it, but I had the hardest time doing that because what was blocking me from making decision to turn my will and life over to the care of God was resentments. The exact thing that got me to you, okay, was resentments. Fortunately, all right, hashtag fortunately, I wasn't done. And when you and you went your way, I went my way. I went from there to Wilmer. I went to Wilmer and was there for 6 months, and then got out and then went back out, did what we do. I rested on my laurels and I just wasn't ready. And it's been a long battle for me. And then today I have that inner peace that I feel and hear in your voice. And, with that said, is 2 men in recovery. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
When I was locked up and every time I would get out, somebody would ask me, what's different now? Right. I could never answer the question. I just couldn't answer it. I didn't know what was different. The reason why I didn't know what was different, because nothing was different. Okay. I was still the same person. The character defects that got me locked up, I was using those same character defects to make the comeback. Does that make sense?
It does.
Because that's all I had. What's different now in Gabriel's life? How do you answer that question when you're speaking?
I don't know that I've been asked, but I'm happy to think about it because I remember what changed. I remember the moment that I realized that I couldn't do what I was doing anymore. And I was in a pool and I was with that girl that I mentioned earlier. And I had a drink in one hand. I think it was a Buffalo Reserve. And I had a cigarette lit in the other, and in a pool. It's what we do.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, because I didn't like God. I didn't like the idea that he existed. Mm-hmm. I knew he did. He proved himself several times in my life. And I just disregarded, But I remember thinking, I don't want to do this anymore. But I don't know how to change it. So can you? And he did. He did. I said the oldest prayer in the book, Mike. That's what changed for me. Mm-hmm. I said, help.
Right.
God, help me.
Right.
It's the oldest prayer that I know. And it's the first prayer that a lot of us have prayed.
Yeah.
What did it look like for you? When did you know?
Well, I had my awakening. It's amazing that I just got the chills. Okay. Was on 3 years ago yesterday. I'll never forget it. So I was apprehended on 5/29/2017. That was the last day that narcotics, alcohol, cigarettes were in my body. That was the last day. If they would have released me, Gabriel, the next day, all right, I would have drank and used. If they would have released me 5 days later, I would have drank and used. Okay. But I just kept, my story is Judge Bennett was on vacation. Then Judge Bennett's dad died and she was gone. So I was on 4 felony probation revoke. And I had 8 dirty UAs. And I just caught a new charge, an assault charge. So I'm in the North Tower in the rock and roll tank. I'm at the end of my rope, right? And I've got a hold on me in other counties, the whole mess, right? The whole mess.
Yeah.
And on 7/7/17, I had this awakening in the West Tower in the psych ward. Okay. I'm in the top bunk and I woke up in the middle of the night and I had this awakening and Christ came into my body and every single bit of anger, my resentments just started coming out of my mouth like flies. I just remember it to this day. It was like the movie The Green Mile. And
yeah. That's what I was thinking about.
I was just filled with love. And I loved everybody. Now, when you and I met, we're good guys. I was a good guy. I've always been a good guy, but I didn't love myself. I lived my whole life paranoid. I lived my whole life in fear. I lived my whole life anxious, right? Mm-hmm. But when I drank and I did drugs, I got that temporary feeling of, and I was willing to go to any lengths to chase that okay? All the way to the point of losing my life. Losing everything. And
I get that.
And then I finally realized I would ask that question to myself every time I was locked up doing hard time. And you know what you and I know what hard time is. Hard time when there's no relationship with God. Okay. There's no drugs. There's no alcohol. And you're in your head out there in the world in the future and locked up. That is hard, dark, depressing time. All right. And so I'm doing hard time. And then I have this awakening and then I'm free. And I became one of those guys that was just happy in jail. And I became one of those guys that I didn't play spades anymore. I didn't play dominoes. I didn't watch TV. I was in the Word. Okay.
Were you preaching? You were preaching.
I was. I was up on that ramp. But the answer to your question is I can finally answer what happened and what's different now. And here's what's different now. In order for God to set me free, I had to set everyone around me free. I had to do that. And what changed my life in scripture was Matthew 6:14. Okay. Mm-hmm. You know, when you forgive those who have forgiven you, sinned against you, I will bless your gain. That's my translation. Okay. But that's what God says. Once you forgive those around you, I will forgive you and bless you. All right. Those two, God gave me those two scriptures, Matthew 6:14 and 15. And it literally told me this book will not work for me until I do these two things. And when I did that, that book opened up for me. The living word became the living word, right? Mm-hmm. And everything I read about it is just on fire for me. And I love it. And another thing is today, when I get in fear, it's a different feeling. The enemy, Satan, really attacks me. I really feel the enemy attacking me and I run back to God. You know, can you relate to that?
I can. It's a deeper sense of fear.
Yes.
Because the deep sense of fear isn't just, oh my gosh, I'm so scared, I better run and hide. It isn't that kind of fear. Yeah. The fear that I remember feeling was the Blair Witch. Yeah. You know, like that's a little bit of fear. Yeah. But the fear that we're talking about is the kind of fear where everything you remember that was bad, all the negativity, the isolation, the pain, mm-hmm. that all sweeps back into the forefront of my mind. Every bit of it. And I remember what that felt like. Right. And the fear that I feel is going back to that. Mm. You know, not an ounce of it looks familiar. Not familiar. Not an ounce of it looks pleasing. Yeah. Satisfying. Right? Because I've had a taste of the well. Mm. I've had a taste of the well. Jesus said, you take a sip of my well, of my water.
The living water.
The living water. You will never be thirsty again.
Yeah.
And while sometimes I might fall a little bit backwards, I might take a step back and think, I could. The book tells us that we recoil from that thought like a hot fire, and I do, because I'm satisfied today. Right. I'm satisfied. There's nothing that appeals to me that I think could be satisfying.
Let's do this. Let's address the newcomer real quick. All right. Let's do it. I Into the Rock, this show, we don't represent any support groups. There are lots of support groups out there available for people via Zoom. There's Celebrate Recovery. There's AA, NA, CA. There's every sort. I work a 12-step recovery program, and I think you do as well. Is that correct?
I do.
And so for the newcomer out there, if you were to give them a suggestion on what's a simple recipe to work a program of recovery.
I hear my sponsor in my head right now. And he's a hard ass. He's old school.
Yeah. What do you mean by that? I've heard people say that my sponsor is so hard on me. He's old school. What does that sound like, look like?
So there's a part in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. It reads that this program is free for anybody if he means business. So he put me through a qualification process. He asked me if I was willing to go to any length to stay sober. And I said, yeah. And he said, you're lying to me. No, I'm really not. And he said, you're really willing to go to any length to stay sober? I said, yeah. So you're willing to turn yourself into jail if you have to? So he qualified me hard. Yeah. And what I would suggest for the newcomer is, if you mean business, find yourself the guy who talks hard. Find yourself the guy with 20 plus, 10 plus, who talks about the book, who talks about what God did for him, and who never says, look at what I did.
Mm.
Find the guy, find the gal who talks about what God gives them, because they're the ones that have it. Whatever this is, whatever recovery is, they've had the spiritual awakening. And it's that spiritual awakening and spiritual experience that changes the man and the woman and regenerates them, and for lack of a better term.
Sponsorship, mentorship, therapist, counselor. We hear this. It's suggested that men work with men, women work with women. Mm-hmm. Why is that suggested?
Well, as PG as I can.
Okay.
Because I'm a Casanova. And if I work with a woman, I'll eventually think about it.
Right.
I can't help it. It's just a part of my nature. I know that this is a show about all kinds of unmanageable addictions, and sex is a big one.
Mm-hmm.
So when we put a male and a female together who are straight, they typically form that kind of emotional bond that will eventually lead to sex, and then no one's going to think straight.
Right.
Everything's all jumbled. Everything's all messed up, because what God brings together, no man can take apart. Mm-hmm. I remember their faces and all their names.
Mm-hmm.
God will never, nothing will ever take me apart from that. So that's why men work with men, because we can relate to each other better. Mm-hmm. Women work with women because they can relate with each other better.
Mm-hmm. For someone in today's society, the world's a different place today. The new norm is different right now. What's your suggestions to the newcomer right now, or someone who's, we'll go back to that relapse, but the newcomer right now that is trying to get sober, and the language of the heart of what we speak? What are you suggesting for the newcomer to do right now? They ask for help. They want help. How do they do this?
All I can do is share from my own experience, and I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
I walked into a room. I joined a meeting. Today we have Zoom meetings all over the place. You can just type in Zoom AA, Zoom NA, Zoom CA, Zoom SA, DAA, all the A's. You'll find a meeting.
Okay.
Because they're available. Get in that meeting. Listen to the people. Don't talk. Listen. And then when they ask if we have anybody here for our first meeting, that's when you say, I'm here for my first meeting and I really need help. What we do in our meetings, I chair a meeting on Friday afternoons, is we ask if there's a newcomer, and sometimes we have newcomers. And so if it's a guy, I ask all the men in the room, share your number in the chat. Wow. So that way they have phone numbers. And then I very sternly, very poignantly say, if you want it bad enough, call one of us. If you want it bad enough, we'll work for you. But if you're here just to try and figure out a way to drink and not get caught, don't call anybody.
Yeah, you're in the wrong room.
You're in the wrong room.
Yeah,
we don't tolerate that. We're here to recover.
Right.
We're not interested in sobering drunks. We're interested in recovering people so that they can have the life that they need back. So they can have a relationship with a power greater than themselves back. So if you're new, get in a meeting. Find a way. Find a way. If you put half the zeal into finding a way to get into a meeting that you put into the next shot, the next drink, the next snort, whatever. If you put half of that effort, you'll find a meeting. You'll find somebody else who's recovered. Ask them to be your sponsor and work this program, whatever program it is, because it works.
Absolutely.
It works.
Absolutely. 12-step recovery. One of the hardest steps for me is I talked about earlier. Step three is made a decision to turn our will and our life over to the care of God as we understood him.
That's right.
What does that mean, Gabriel?
For me, that meant taking my hands off the freaking wheel, getting myself in the passenger seat, and learning that it's okay, that I don't need to control the outcome. it's okay to trust somebody else. It's okay to not only admit that I have a problem, step one, to seek some help, step two, but to also find God and let him do the work through me that he intended to do in the first place. Because that's all he ever wanted to do, was have a relationship with us and then work through us. So for me, that's giving up control and accepting that when I control it, it'll fail. But when I let God control it, it will work. It may not work the way that I want it to work, but it works. And it's better than anything that I can ever imagine.
So then once we do step 3, we've made a decision to turn our will and life over to the care of God as we understood him. Then we go into what I've always heard about, the dreaded 4th step. Okay. Made a moral I hear that, and I've got I did a whole show on that. Made a moral and searching, fearless inventory of
made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves.
And walk out of Gabriel's mouth, how do you present step 4 to the people in recovery?
Important, critical. This step, as it says in the book, is a stock in trade. It's an inventory. We look at all the things that are hurting us. We look at all the things that were done to us. We look at our sex inventory, which is where a lot of people fall off, in my experience. A lot of my sponsees fall off on the sex inventory because a lot of them are like, man, I don't know, But inventory process for us is to identify the things that we can't use, even the things that we thought were helpful, the things that we use to protect ourselves from the love of others, because they'll just leave, they'll hurt us anyway. We take a look at these things. And what I tell my guys is, if you're willing to put all of this on paper and you're willing to talk to me about it or to talk to a closed-mouthed friend about these things, none of them will have any power anymore. Not an ounce of it. So that's what the 4th step, and that's how I present it to guys. We're going to talk about some deep, dark stuff.
But we also, in my 4th step, in my experience, Gabriel, we also get to look at our assets.
That's right. You can find the things that are good.
Yeah.
The things that you were trying to hide.
Right. We went to walk. That's where I realized that one of my biggest character defects was my mouth. Right. And then God used it and turned it into one of my greatest assets, because I was started speaking from here instead of speaking from here. Right.
Yeah.
And I learned that in the 4th step. I also share this, Gabriel, when I hear people talk about the dreaded 4th step. All right. Remember, we made a decision to turn our will and life over to the care of God as we understood him, right? We have a God. If I'm going into the 4th step with guilt, shame, and remorse, right? I've got the wrong God, because that's not what God wants me to feel. He wants me to go into the 4th step together with him to take an inventory, so I realize what role I play in each of these instances, right?
Right.
And once I find out what role I play in it, once I get to step 12, I get to really realize that I get to use my story to help others because of the 4th column. Make sense?
It is.
What we do today. And that's where, when we are helping other men and they take that risk and say, this is what I did. And I'm like, that's it? I did it too. I did the same thing. But what a relief for them of the weight that is lifted off of them, because we drink over that stuff, holding that inventory. But once we release it, we do that. Step 5 is that we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact natures of our wrong. How freeing was that for you?
The book says that we can look people in the eye again.
Yeah.
And I started to walk with my chest puffed up because my sponsor at the time, it's not the sponsor I have today, but the sponsor at the time looked at me and said, all right, we're going to talk about every deep, dark crevice. What's the one thing you'll take to your grave? I was like, well, shit. Man, you just had me do this whole 4th step. You already know everything. He said, what's the one thing you're going to take to the grave? And I told him. And he kind of giggled, like you said, that's it. That's it. That's what you're taking to, come on, man. You thought you were special.
Right.
And really what it was, Michael, for me, was learning how to trust another person again.
Mm.
You know, I grew up with a mother who didn't want me. I grew up with a father who was never around because he was working so hard. And trust was hard to earn for me.
Yeah.
But what I learned about trust in the fifth step is it wasn't mine to have anyway.
Yeah.
God puts people in my life.
Yeah.
And when it comes to grace, I don't have the choice of, do I take it? Because it's not something I'm capable of. I can't take grace.
Mm.
It's a gift. And I have a choice. And that choice is I can either accept it or I can leave it.
Mm.
So when someone comes into my life today, like, I'm happy you and I have reconnected.
Right.
I know that God's doing it for a reason. And I can trust the person until they break it.
Mm.
It's like innocent until proven guilty. I trust you until you prove untrustworthy.
Mm.
And so far, every person that God has put in my life, I've been able to trust them. So that's what the fifth step gave me. The lesson of trust.
How important is forgiveness in recovery?
5 years into this gig,
Mm.
until about the end of September last year, I thought it was second or third most important thing. And today I kind of put it a little bit lower, honestly. For me, forgiveness, in my experience, only one person needed it. I'm a super forgiving person anyway. You know, I'll give you chances. You know, I'm uber loyal to a fault. And which is funny because I never inspired loyalty, and trust was so hard to get from me. But, you know, I'll do whatever I can for you because I need you to like me.
Right.
But as far as forgiveness was concerned, there was only one person I never forgave. And that was my mother.
Mm. And
I remember it like it was yesterday, man. I was in Oregon at the time, so this was the end of 2015. And we're going down the street. We're headed to an AA meeting.
I remember this story.
Yeah.
I'm getting chills right now. I just now remembered you and I sitting at a table and you tell me this story. Continue.
We were riding down the way, and I looked over to the right and I saw a little auto shop, and it was a crossroads. And I remember thinking to myself, you know, God forgave me. He forgives everybody. What makes me better than him? Why can't I forgive her? And that was the first time that I experienced what I think God intends forgiveness to be.
Mm-hmm.
I cried. It was a 45-minute drive to the meeting. Oregon is super, super big. Not super big, but it's not huge cities, so there's a lot of driving you got to do to get from place to place. And cried the whole way to the meeting. And my sponsor let me. He didn't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the most important part of my recovery at that time. I needed that. And since, I've grown to a point in my recovery where now the most important things are wanting it more than I want anything else. Family, because you need that support group. Sponsorship, because you need someone to teach you the way. And until you have a relationship with God, nothing can happen anyway. Mm-hmm. So the foundation of this whole thing is a relationship with God, and forgiveness will come. Just let it. It'll happen on God's time. Mm-hmm. Because that was a whole several months into recovery before I was able to forgive her. And in my experience with a lot of guys in recovery, my sponsor, he held a grudge for 20 years. It wasn't a resentment, but he just didn't forgive the guy. And they had a talk, and he ended up forgiving him. Mm. And after 20 years, 2 decades, man, stayed sober. Mm. So forgiveness isn't so important, I don't think, anymore. But we've got to realize that it's God's gift to give. So it's got to be on his time. And we've just got to be willing to feel it when it happens.
I am sitting here listening to you talk about the forgiveness story because I remember you and I spending time together. Special shout out to Dylan Loving. If y'all haven't checked out Dylan Loving, he is an incredible, oh my God, he was on the M2 The Rock show. He's got a huge social media following. Dylan, we love you. Dylan, text me, hit me up. Let's get you back on next week. And but he is he's one of us. And he's got a great story and did time, and he is a very, very special man. And I remember when you and I were talking, drinking coffee, or rubber cups, and you told me the story about Oregon. There was a trailer, wasn't there? Was it a mobile home or a trailer?
She lived in a trailer, yeah. But so the story yeah, it was strange.
Yeah, it was, but you incurred a lot of trauma. There was a lot of trauma in your life, right?
Enough.
Yeah.
When I was living with my mom, my father left. He gave me the choice of where I wanted to live, with him or with my mother. And I chose mom.
I remember this, yeah.
I chose mom because I knew my dad loved me. He'd take me fishing. He'd take me to the grocery store with him. We'd spend time together. But my mom was never really around, and she never really paid any attention to me. So, I'm 7, 8 years old thinking I can earn my mother's love that way. So I stayed home, stayed with her. And we were living in a double wide at the time in Oregon, pretty common, manufactured homes. And after a little while, she bought a small, like Winnebago, one that you could probably pull behind a Ford Ranger back then.
Yes.
And she parked it in the backyard, and that's where she lived. And so she moved in there, and some people moved into our house, and she rented out the other 2 rooms to other people. And I learned very quickly how to disappear.
Yeah.
I learned very swiftly how to not be noticed, not to make waves, not to make anybody angry. And I lived that way for years until I called my father and I said, "Can't live here anymore." And Michael, this is some God stuff. He lived 6 hours away. I called him at 11 p.m. and I didn't expect him until the next morning. 6 hours, man. I didn't expect him until like 8, 9. Maybe he'd drive overnight. I don't know. He was there at 2 a.m. Wow. 2 a.m. And I'd never felt saved up to that point. And he saved me. So the last time that I saw my mom even, I was really painful. And that's why I couldn't forgive her. She was hurt. She was ill. I didn't learn about her conditions until I was later in life, but she had some problems. And I know today that she did the best she could with what she had.
Yeah.
And regardless of the illnesses that she was suffering from, because she was suffering, she was a victim.
Yeah.
Today, I can look back and I can remember laughing with her. And I can remember watching Star Trek. She was a huge Trekkie.
Yeah.
And, I didn't know what the hell I was watching, but, those times, I remember those times now. I don't remember the trailer in the backyard and the people that were in and out. I don't think about them anymore. They don't have any power anymore. When you started talking, I remember you and I sitting at the table for hours, just chopping it up, right? Yeah. But we were talking and you shared that story with me more in detail, but you weren't in forgiveness yet. You know what I mean? You were really hurting at the time. And I remembered that, just giving you a good listening to and hearing that. And then today you're able to forgive. What does it mean? Because you said something that I learned in recovery, let me grab this real quick. Yeah. We're on M2 The Rock.
The thing that has really helped me, because you reminded me of something about, the forgiveness. And when I read this and you talked about, I realized that my mom and dad did the best they could with the tools they had. acceptance. And when I didn't think that way, I was being selfish, right? And then once I started looking at my mom's upbringing and my dad's upbringing and the things that they were just doing the best they could that they had, all right? And then it made sense to me when they were telling me, hey, Michael, they're not doing it to you. They're just doing it, right?
It just is, man. It just is the way it is.
And one of the things in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous on page 66, which changed my life, okay? I had so many awakenings. And if you're new to recovery and working a recovery program and you're connected, we have awakenings all the time. Everything's an awakening. It's like, oh, wow, there's God, there's God, there's God, there's God, sure. Right? But it says here, this was the people who might have wronged us, that we thought wronged us, right? This was our course. We realized that the people who wronged us were perhaps spiritually sick. Though we did not like their symptoms and the way these disturbed us, they, like ourselves, were sick too. We asked God to help us show them the same tolerance, pity, and patience that we would cheerfully grant a sick friend. When a person offended, we said to ourselves, this is a sick man or woman. Back then, when they were writing, the word man meant human. Yeah. Okay. That this is a sick man. How can I be helpful to him or her? God, save me from being angry. Thy will be done. Here we go. We avoid retaliation and argument. We wouldn't treat sick people that way. If we do, we destroy our chance of being helpful. We cannot be helpful to all people, but at least God will show us how to take a kindly and tolerant view of each and every one. What does that mean to you?
That means that I'm no better and I'm no worse than any one human being that's left on this planet.
Yeah.
Not one person, not one, is at any other level than I am. Ground is level at the foot of the cross, homeboy.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't care if you're gay. I don't care if you're Christian. I don't care if you're Muslim. I don't care if you're white, black, blue, green, or orange. We're the same.
Yeah.
We're all in the same boat. So when you treat me negatively, I realize that there's probably something behind it. And you're not even mad at me. Chances are you're mad at something. And I reminded you of that. I don't know what it was.
I don't
know if it's dad, an uncle, brother. Somebody took something from you.
Yeah.
So when I see a person who's hurt and lashes out back at me, I'll feel it. I might even lash back because I have a short temper sometimes, but yeah. I know that you don't want to hurt me, but you want to hurt the memory. And we were talking about forgiveness just now. Something that I remember hearing in a room. It was so profound for me. There's one of those God moments. The lady said, what I've learned about forgiveness is simply accepting that the past won't change.
Wow.
And there's just not a better description.
Yeah.
It happened. And I can accept that it happened.
Yeah.
What can I do about it today?
I like this about forgiveness because I'm always that kind of guy, Damien. I almost called you Damien. Gabriel. I got Damien and you in my mind because I have these visuals of us sitting at the table playing cards. And
what awful clothes they put us in.
Yes, and Damien always had coffee for us, right?
He did. He always bought the O'Keefe coffee.
Yes, he always got the coffee for us because you and I didn't have any, but he took good care of it.
We had some hella good spreads too, bro.
Yes, we did. We did. But I always want to know, I hear people say, hey, quit drinking the poison, hoping that, that they die. Right. And, the only Michael, you need to forgive everybody until that's going to get you well. I would hear people say this. All right. But I wanted to know, how do I know if I've forgiven them? How do I know if I have truly forgiven these people? And I finally have an answer. I finally got it. And true forgiveness, okay, for everybody who's watching and listening to this, when we truly forgive somebody, I realize that I have stopped planning revenge against that person, place, or thing. The big book calls it morbid reflection. All right. If I'm laying in bed at night, danger. Okay. And I am reflecting on mom or the ex or whatever it is, reflecting on it, I haven't truly forgiven. And Matthew 6:14 and 15 says, when we forgive the ones who have sinned against us, God's going to bless your game. And in my story, when I forgave everyone, he literally opened up the doors and set me free. I just told you that story the other night. You didn't know that.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. So let's see, I have a really hard time accepting God, but I feel something through y'all sharing your experiences, and I'm so thankful to be listening. Laney Flowers, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate that.
Yeah, that's an interesting point to make. Something that a lot of people that come into this program, any program that is spiritually based, with spiritual principles laid at your feet, you can either take them or leave them. Laney, you said that you have a hard time accepting God. And something that I learned through this program of Alcoholics Anonymous, specifically through a man wiser than I am. He looked at me and he said, I don't know why you keep talking about God the way that you talk about him. Because the God that you were taught isn't the God that loves you. So stop, take a step back, and ask God to reveal himself in a way that you can understand.
Wow.
And I was like, hell did you just tell me? What? That's silly. There's only one God. And he said, no, there isn't. Now, there could be. I don't know. I'm not a religious expert, he said, but he said, take a step back and ask God to reveal himself in a way that you can understand. And he has. And since, and this is for you, Laney, I know you're having a problem accepting God. I would give you the same advice, because since then, remarkable things have happened. So take a step back and ask God to reveal itself however it needs to, so that you can understand.
Once we choose a God, just pretend that he's telling the truth. Yes, that's the first step to faith. Just pretend that he's telling the truth. We're going to act like God's telling the truth. You know what I mean? And have faith. Laney, keep tuning in to the show. You're watching two men on this show. I had no belief in God, wanted nothing to do with God. But until the pain got so bad and God allowed everything in our lives to go completely out of control for us to hit our knees to realize that we never had control over anything. And that's what happened in our life. Gabriel, what are you doing today? Tell us a little bit. We're about to wrap up. What is your podcast and how people can find you and follow you? Tell us what's going on.
Yeah, so this podcast was a couple months in the making. My wife and I really talked about it thoroughly before we launched this, and it's me. It's called What a Curious Idea. I built a website for it. I bought all the gear that I needed to make this thing happen. I was just given access to a studio so I can record better audio. And you can find it at wacidea.com. Okay. Wacidea.com. And you can find it the same WAC Idea podcast on Twitter, Facebook. I don't really ask for feedback. I just ask if you think it's worth it. Like and subscribe, share it with a friend.
Awesome.
What I've set out to do is talk to authorities in their field.
And what's that?
I've talked to business owners. Mm-hmm. I talked to two entrepreneurs who happen to be brothers. They own a small vaping company that grew to tremendous heights and caught a lot of attention from a lot of outside sources. And I learned from their experience. I talked to a 40-plus year experienced nurse in the Dallas, Texas health system. I've talked to a pastor twice. I've talked to the one episode I'm the most proud of is an episode where I sat with, it was right after George Floyd. And I sat with a friend of mine who's on staff at a church and the lead worship pastor at a church. And we talked about race. One of them happens to be black. And he shared how we need to sit back and, he gave a lot of advice. If you'd like to hear it, you can go listen to it. But I've had a great time doing this. I love the whole process behind it. And so when I do something like this with you, I learn even more. And that's the whole point. I want to learn from people. I want to learn from those who've been there and done it, because I learn from experiences. And if that sounds like something you can do, learn from experience, tune in, man. Back Idea Podcast. It comes out almost every Friday.
Awesome. Well, definitely when the show is over, please feel free in the comments, Gabriel, to put your links in the comments so people can follow you and reach out to you. Thank you so much for being on our show tonight. You have really helped out a lot of people. I'm just so grateful that God has reconnected us. What a road we have both gone. And you went left, I went right, or I went left, you went right. Who knows which way we went? But we want to give a special shout out to the 24-Hour Club.
Yes,
Mark Williamson. We didn't get a chance to talk on that. But the 24-Hour Club here in Dallas, Gabriel was living there to re-enter into life. And the facility that they have is just state-of-the-art, incredible facility.
It really is. There's also a small committee of alumni, graduates from the Dallas 24-Hour Club that I'm a part of, called the Friends of the 24. And we supply and support the residents of the Dallas 24-Hour Club any way that we can. And our donations are getting bigger, so thank you. Yeah. And we're able to give them more. We're providing things that the 24-Hour Club either can't or is told they can by whatever regulation.
We will have their links in the comments as well. So for anyone who wants to donate or call them to see what they need and everything like that. So, Gabriel, I'm going to put you backstage and then I'm going to talk to you a little bit after the show. But thank you so much. Everybody hit the hearts and the likes and make sure you share this out to get the message. And Gabriel, you're such a blessing. And it's been so great to reconnect with you. And we'll have you on again. And hopefully in studio.
in studio would be wonderful. And Michael, I'd love to have you on the podcast, brother. You and Rachel.
I would love to. And I think I see a lady in the comments with the same last name as you.
She's redheaded. That might be my best friend and my wife.
So awesome. So tell her we are looking forward to meeting her as well. God bless you, my friend. And we will have you back soon. Everyone say thank you to Gabriel. What a great guest. Great. Very soft-spoken, solid, just full of wisdom. I mean, I love the presentation that he brings to recovery. Trust God, clean house, and help others. Pretty simple recipe for complicated people like myself. Tune in tomorrow night, same time, 7:30 Central Time here on M2 The Rock. I'll be by myself tomorrow night, so I'll be pulling together a subject. I'll probably pull together the subject like I always do on Thursdays as a result of me being at Healing Springs Ranch all day long. The residents there will really get me stimulated as far as what we can talk about, and we'll go from there. Just remember this. I got 3 words. I got 8 letters, and it's got one meaning, and that is I love you. Good night, everyone.